Profiles. We'll often need to switch up settings on the fly inside of Wireshark, and profiles provide an amazing opportunity to do exactly that. Let's begin. I'd like you to imagine that we're going to go to a nice warm beach. The sun is shining, the waves are gentle, the sand is beautiful, and I'd like you to imagine what would we bring to the beach? Perhaps a towel, some suntan lotion, and so forth. And now, on the other hand, I'd like you to imagine we're going to go on another trip, but this time we're going to go snowmobiling in the snow. And my question is, are the items that we're going to bring with us to each of those locations, are they the same or are they different? Now, there might be some common aspects that we might bring to both places. For example, we might bring some identification, we might bring some money. However, we're going to take the jacket up to snowmobile, and we're probably going to take the bathing suit out to the beach. We have different clothes that we're going to wear for different activities. In the world of Wireshark, we could use Wireshark for a lot of different things. For example, one day, we might be looking at security concerns with clear text protocols and how secure is an application on the network. And maybe later on that same day, we're tracking down a different type of problem where there's a latency or a slowness between a customer using an application and the response they're getting back. Where is the delay? Is it at the client, at the server? Is it the network in between? And we might be using Wireshark to identify a whole different set of problems. Well, in either of those cases, it's very likely that we're going to want to have different information on our screen inside of Wireshark, maybe specific columns or features or settings. And how can we quickly change between one set and the other? And the answer, my friend, is by setting up profiles. So that really addresses our first objective, which is describe the benefits of a profile. We have all of our settings for a certain type of activity already set up, and then somebody switch over to that profile and poof, those columns show up that we want, the layout is the way we want it, and that, my friend, is the benefit of having a profile. So what you and I get to do is have a little fun. We're going to go ahead and capture some brand new data. I'm going to put the sniffer, the interface, on a fairly busy part of my home office network, so I'll have something to play with. We'll create a brand new profile, and then, this is the important part, any changes that we make to the Wireshark interface, for example, what our preferences are for protocols, the time display, the TCP reassembly options, everything else, whatever we change while we're in that profile, stay with that profile. So we're going to go through a few exercises that will be very useful later as well in this series. So we'll make all these changes, we'll apply them to this profile because we'll be sitting in it, and then anytime that you and I want to come back to this profile, we can simply select it and all these settings will be just the way we left them. So let's start by capturing some data, and there's several ways of starting a capture. We could select an interface from the list and then click on start, or we could click on interface, or we could go ahead and use this icon from the toolbar to go ahead and select interface. And that gives us our interfaces we can choose from. And I'm going to go ahead and choose this one right here. These other interfaces that I have, I've got a Microsoft Loopback, I've got some VirtualBox interfaces, I have a physical interface, I've got a wireless interface on here somewhere, and this one right here is connected to one of the busiest portions of my network. So I'm going to go ahead and simply select this one to go ahead and start the capture. Now, as this capture starts, I'm also on a second screen going to go ahead and launch a connection to Google, so we'll have some additional traffic to look at as well. So that's pouring in, and it looks like there's some various traffic patterns that are happening, and that is great. So I'm going to stop this capture by clicking on the little stop icon. I'm also going to save it, and let's call this profile capture, and I'll click on save. I will put that up in the Nugget Lab download area, so if you want to take a look at that and join me step for step in this video, feel free to. Another option would be to use your own capture that you're currently working with, and you can still set up a custom profile in the same manner that you're going to see right now. We have several options to create a new profile. We could right-click right down here on the profile in the status bar, and that would give us the ability to create a brand new profile, or we could go to Edit and select Configuration Profiles, or on a Windows machine, we could use Shift-Control-A. Any one of those options will allow us to bring up the profile menu. Since we're right here, let's use this option. Now, by default, we have the single default profile, but let's say we had 5 or 6 custom profiles and we wanted to build a new profile based on a current one as the baseline, the starting point. To do that, we simply highlight the existing one, say copy, and then we can go ahead and name it whatever we want. It's going to take the defaults for this brand new profile from whatever the current settings are in the profile we're looking at. So let's go ahead and call this Custom Profile 1. And then we click on apply or OK. Once we do that, I want you to notice right down here, the profile that we're using is now indicated as being custom profile 1. And any changes that we make, the way the columns look, the things that are displayed on the screen and so forth, all of that is going to be saved inside of this profile. Now, the really cool thing in the bottom line of profiles is that any settings we change here while we're in as profile 1 are going to be saved to profile 1. Sort of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what we change and what we set inside of profile 1 stays in profile 1. So in the future, if we ever need to come back to the custom settings of custom profile number 1, they'll be sitting in waiting for us the same exact way that we left them. So what exactly is our problem with custom profile 1? The problem is it's just the same as the default profile. We haven't changed anything yet. So let's go ahead and make some customizations. The first thing I'd like to walk you through is let's change the time display format. That's this column right here. By default, the very first packet in our trace has a 0 timestamp, and then everything else is the difference, the time away from that very first packet. So this one came in at 199 milliseconds after the very first one. This was 855 milliseconds. This was, just a hair later. And then this was 1.14 seconds later, and so forth and so forth. We could go up to View, and under View, we could say, I want to change the time display format from its default, which is seconds since beginning of capture. We can say, you know what, I want to see the seconds since the previous packet. Once we change that, so now each packet is showing the delay since the previous packet. So for example, this guy right here, packet number 5, came in at 0.289 or 289 milliseconds after packet number 4. So you might be asking, Keith, what's the big deal about changing the time here? That change that we just made is now part of custom profile 1. So if we wanted to go back and forth between profiles, we have 2 to choose from. We have the default profile, and we've got custom profile number 1. So let's go ahead and right click on the profile. From there, we can select change, and we can select default, and that brings us back to the default profile. And look at the timestamps right here. Now it's in the order that's set for the default profile. We're going to go back. I want to change back over to the custom profile. So right click, hover over change, and then use the drop down to select custom profile 1, and we're back. So the settings follow the profile. Fantastic. One of the features that is on by default in Wireshark is the concept of reassembly, and it does something like this. Let's go to packet, let's use the go to icon, and let's go to packet 64. So if you take a look at packet 64, it says this is a TCP segment of a reassembled PDU. So if we go to the TCP section and look at the details, it doesn't really tell us the details of what's really happening in this packet. And that's because the reassembly function said, oh, this is part of a TCP stream. Somewhere else in the capture, we could see the details of this. But what if we wanted to see it on this packet, the detail just for this packet? How do we turn off that reassembly feature? There's a couple ways of turning this off. We could go to Preferences, and then in Preferences, we could go down to Protocols, and we could go down to TCP, and then go ahead and turn it off. Or you simply click on TCP from the Details pane, right-click, and from here, we can go to Protocol Preferences, and this is going to give us some preferences for TCP that we can select right here. It's a lot faster than going into Preferences the long way. If we want to turn off the reassembly for TCP streams, we can simply remove the check mark next to Allow Subdissector to reassemble TCP streams. Once that's removed, check this out. This same packet is now giving us additional details of what's inside. So this is an OK message coming back from the server to the client. Now regarding the focus of this nugget, that change regarding how to handle the reassembly for the subdissector, that is now part of custom profile 1. So again, anything we change as far as the properties, the way we view things, that's all part of this profile. Another feature that we can enable or disable regarding TCP is to have it show us how many bytes are outstanding that have not yet been acknowledged in a TCP session. To set that up, we could go through the preferences the long way, or we can simply click on TCP, right-click, and select Protocol Preferences from here, and simply make sure that there is a check mark next to Track Number of Bytes in Flight. Now, by default, that is on, so if you want to leave that on, just leave the check mark present. Now, where exactly would we see the bytes in flight? Under the analysis section right here, there's our bytes in flight. So 1430 at the moment, based on this snapshot in time of this packet. Now let's go back to our very top of our trace with this icon right here to go back to packet number 1. And let's talk about these timestamps for a moment. Now, having the timestamps from one packet to the next isn't too helpful if there's a whole bunch of conversations going on. And I guarantee you that there's at least 2 or 3 different conversations happening inside of this capture. So the timestamp is not going to really help us regarding a delay. For example, a customer going off to a single website and there's a delay involved. This right here won't show it. But what we can do, which is very, very handy, is we can go ahead and tell the system in preferences that, you know what, for TCP traffic, we would love to see the delay between TCP packets in a single session. For example, you have 5 or 6 different TCP sessions going on. It can give us the delay packet by packet for a single TCP session so we can see the actual delay. And that gives us an opportunity to get a visual into the delay between packets for an individual session. To enable that feature, which will also become part of this profile, it's really simple. We could either go to Preferences, find TCP and set it that way, or simply grab TCP inside of our Details pane, right-click, go down to Protocol Preferences for TCP, and simply click on the option that says Calculate Conversation Timestamps. If there's a check mark next to it, that means it's on. Now I have this brand new area called timestamps, and this is showing me the timestamp since the very first packet in this capture, which, because we're on packet number 1, we're at 0000, and the time since the previous frame is also 000 because we're at the very first packet. But let's use our go-to option one more time. Let's go to packet number 64 once again. So we'll jump down to packet 64 and check this out. This is saying that this packet that we're looking at has been 134 milliseconds since the very first packet in this TCP session, and it's only 76 milliseconds behind the previous packet in this session. So regarding latency, there's very little latency. Now, if we wanted to add this as a column inside of this profile, the custom profile 1, how would we do that? And you might be thinking, well, Keith, I think I have an idea. It goes something like this. We simply click on the field that we want to make as a new column, right click, and say apply as column. And that's going to add a new column that says time since previous frame in this TCP stream right here. Now that's a little bit long, so we can shorten it up. Well, let's right click and we'll say I want to edit the column details. And if that name is too long, we can shorten it up. For example, we can call it time since previous, and we'll say previous TCP. And we'll click on OK. And that makes the column a little narrower. So what have we done? All these changes that we've been making are now part of this custom profile. So if we ever needed to come back and have this column present and have these settings regarding the bytes in flight and the timestamps there, all we would need to do is load this profile. It would have all those settings, and whatever capture or trace we're looking at, these settings from our profile would be applied to it. So check this out. If we wanted to sort based on the time delay here, all we need to do is right click on that column. I want to say sort descending. My worst offenders will be on top. I'll use this icon here to go to the very first packet, and 19 seconds. Wow. Based on the flags involved, it looks like it was a closure of a TCP session, and as a result, maybe it's not too critical as far as latency is concerned. However, if we scroll down a little bit, we'll see that most of our delays here between a TCP segment and the previous one in that session flow, they're very, very low. So if we go back to this one right here and we say, you know what, I wonder who that was. What server was that? We go to the Internet Protocol and simply say, you know what, please tell us this destination address of 74.125.224.209. Who is that? Right click, resolve name, and that's google.com. And again, because that was a fin involved, it's very likely it was just closing down a session after it was all done. Another thing we might want to do is disable the validation of TCP, UDP, and IP version 4 checksums. Now, we already in a previous video did that on IPv4, but we haven't for TCP and UDP. So if we wanted to disable the checksum validation, what we could do is just grab any packet in our trace and go to the IP by clicking on it, right click on it, go to Protocol Preferences, and simply say, I don't want to validate the IPv4 checksum if possible. Make sure there's a no check mark next to that feature. For TCP validation, we just highlight TCP, right click, go to Protocol Preferences, and make sure there's no check mark next to validate the TCP checksum if possible. For UDP, we need to find a UDP packet, so we can do a display filter to help us find any. There's one there, a DNS request, fantastic. So we'll click on UDP, right click, and simply go to Protocol Preferences. And this time it's for UDP Protocol Preferences. And just make sure that the Validate UDP checksum is not. All of these protocol options could have been done by going to Preferences, and then going down to Protocols and finding IPv4 and TCP and UDP. But I think you'll agree it's a lot easier simply to right click on that field in the details pane, as it gives you the short way of getting to that same information. So what have we done in this video? Well, so far we've created a brand new custom profile. We've also changed several settings that whenever we use this profile, those settings will be enforced. Now the question is, Keith, where exactly is Wireshark keeping all these custom settings inside of our profile? Because we might want to back it up, we might want to copy those files and bring them over to another computer. Where are they kept? That's a great question, and Wireshark makes it so easy for us to find them. Check this out. To find out where those settings are kept for this custom profile, all we're going to do is ask for a little bit of help. What do you mean, Keith, ask for help? You actually go up to the Help in Wireshark and click on About Wireshark. Now, normally you think, well, what's that going to tell me? The version of Wireshark? Well, that's true. It will show us the version of Wireshark, and it will show us all the amazing authors who have spent countless hours and time and effort making Wireshark the world's most popular and free protocol analyzer. But what I wanted to show you is folders. Right here under folders, if we go to personal configuration, this area right here, and we simply double click on that, it will take us to the files that are holding the information regarding our custom profiles. So let's do it. We'll double click. That opens up a brand new window. If we go into profiles, here's our custom profile 1 that we created. If we open that folder, here we have preferences. I'm going to go ahead and open that file. It's saying, I'm not sure I recognize that file type. What do you want to open it with? We're just going to use Notepad, a simple text editor. And here is our preferences file. So if we scroll down, it has all these settings in it. And check this one out right here. For the column format, we have the number, the time, the source, the destination, protocol length, and check this out, the time since previous TCP, our custom column, which is sitting waiting for us. So if you wanted to edit this file, could you? And the answer is very likely yes, if you use the correct syntax and so forth that Wireshark is expecting. You could also certainly back up this folder, and then copy it to another implementation of Wireshark if you wanted to take your settings with you. In this video, we've created a custom profile, and the benefit of a profile is so that all those settings, the way we want to have them, are there and ready for us when we select that profile and begin to use it. We created a custom profile, we changed a whole bunch of settings, and we took a look at where those settings are kept. Now, your homework assignment is really simple. If you've already created a custom profile with me during the video, which is awesome, and you've changed these settings to make them part of your custom profile, you're done. Your homework is done. Go right on to the next video. However, if you haven't yet practiced with creating a custom profile, I would encourage you to pause, go ahead and do it now. If you want to walk through the video again step by step, I would recommend you go through those steps. One of the biggest benefits of working with and using profiles is time. I mean, imagine a customer calling you and saying, the network seems incredibly slow. We grab a capture, we put it into Wireshark, and then we grab the profile that already has the TCP delta and the other fields that are going to be important for us in identifying where that slowness is coming from. Another reason for going through these steps is that I'm going to start using this profile that we just did in this video as we continue forward through the Nugget series. I have had a great time. I appreciate the time we've spent together. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.